So I watched this recent video, Skeptic Scriptura, recently released, called When CosmicSkeptic, aka Alex O'Connor, Stops Holding Back Against Nonsense Christians. It's a roundtable discussion between Alex and a few others, notably Christian apologist Greg Koukl, who we rebutted before in this video. They, of course, got into the topic of morality, a topic I've addressed before in this video. But we can never say enough about God's warped morality, nor can we ever challenge it with enough critical questions. So we're going to have another go today with some new questions I'd like to pose. So we'll watch a very short clip, then react to it. And this one should be a short one today, though we can spend days on this subject. I'll leave you with two questions to ponder. Hey friends, I'm H.G.Roberts, deconverted Christian after 25 years and author of On Monsters and Phantoms, and here we talk about religious trauma and how the Bible itself ties us up in knots. It leads to confusion, anxiety, fear, doubt, depression, emotional oblivion, mental paralysis, and ultimately, of course, trauma. I have a master's degree in mass communication, so I'm specifically interested in the messages that the Bible communicates to us today, the cognitive filters in our minds that we use to interpret those messages, and finally, the harmful impact those messages have on ourself and our worldview.
My argument, and this is what I was getting at a little earlier, Dr. K, is that if there is no God establishing a right and wrong, then there is no right and wrong because there is no law that we're conforming ourselves to. We're just doing stuff, all right?
I think we first need to establish that the Christian definition of God's morality is that it is good, right, fair, and just. It's meant to be perfect, whatever that can mean. It sets the standard for how we're to behave. In fact, since God's behavior is supposedly perfectly moral, we're to emulate that behavior, and where we don't, when we fall short or miss that mark, Christians call that sin. The other assumption Christians make is that when we fall short of God's morality, we live a depraved, unfulfilled, and unsatisfying life, nor can we possibly intuitively know right from wrong. I'll say it again. I still feel the same conviction, if you want to call it that, of shame, guilt, and sorrow when I wrong somebody or do something that cuts against my values now as I did for 25 years as a Christian. I still endeavor to do what I believe is right and good and fair and helpful and sacrificial to others as much now as I did when I was a Christian. Where's all that coming from since the Holy Spirit supposedly left me when I deconverted? How is it possible that I still have any moral compass? Am I just borrowing from Christianity still? Or is something more elemental and empirically validated in the literature around the human construct of morality at play? Another conversation for another time. So I have two basic questions for you Christians, and I'd actually like to hear your thoughtful and respectful replies because I'm asking these questions respectfully and sincerely. Question 1. Is it or can it be moral for God to allow for and preside over a fallen world where evil and suffering exist, potentially because of an evil agent God himself gives dominion over this world and who he allows to disrupt this world, a world God himself cursed so the world would be this way? Is that moral? Is cursing something moral? Are these the actions of a perfectly moral and maximally great, omnipotent, and sovereign being? No. They're not. Quite the opposite. Yeah, but HG, God's going to fix all that by restoring the world to perfect at this second coming. I'll even give you that, which then you admit that God himself sustains a broken world where evil is allowed to flourish under his watch and by his decree. To even allow that scenario for 1 second, much less thousands and thousands of years, in my view, is not moral. It's reprehensible and the exact opposite of what we'd expect to see from an all-loving, all-powerful God of perfect love. I would also argue that to sustain this type of world is unjust. The Bible declares that a majority of people will choose the road that leads to destruction, which God already knows and knew from the beginning. How just is it to create a playing field where you've not just allowed for, but established that your sworn enemy has the ability you gave him to manipulate your creation such that many would be deceived and thus unsaved? A God of perfect justice would see to it that justice against evil is served immediately such that it cannot corrupt, disrupt, and deceive even one person. Justice does not sustain and perpetuate evil. By definition, we live in an unjust world, which is the world God currently sustains and may for billions of years more before the rapture. This level of unjustness is not moral. So, question number 2, is it moral to choose a specific people group through whom to reveal yourself, while excluding every other people group that you instead choose to slaughter and genocide because they don't know the laws and the behavioral standards you reveal to only your chosen group? Yeah, but H.G. Paul fixes all that by revealing the great mystery of including the Gentiles in God's salvation plan. Right. By Jesus's and Paul's own declarations, thousands and thousands of years had passed before the Gentiles were grafted into the family of believers. Again, I would argue that choosing one group for God to reveal himself to, while not just excluding others, but slaughtering them even for a second, is a reprehensible evil and something that is explicitly immoral. I can ask a million other questions about slavery, misogyny, rapist punishment, and on and on and on and on. But again, explain to me how anyone can see this God as the ultimate and objective standard of perfect goodness, righteousness, and justice. He fails at every level and every turn. And yet for eons, we have to put forth these same questions and arguments, not because they fail, but because the blind faith and ignorance of religion prevails. Short one today, you guys. Thanks for being here. If you want to support this channel, please like, subscribe, share, comment, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss my next conversation starter. But a way to support the channel financially, since I don't have Patreons or sponsors, is to do what many others have already done and purchase On Monsters and Phantoms. It's my memoir about severe religious trauma and deconversion from Christianity, and leave a review. It's a raw and honest look into the diabolically harmful mind games Christianity plays with us. The link to it on Amazon is below. I really appreciate that. If you do buy it, let me know via email, in addition to a comment, so I can publicly thank you in my next video. And by the way, if you're on the fence about whether or not to read my memoir, head over to onmonstersandphantoms.com. Right there on the homepage are lots of reader reviews. This isn't an easy read, but hopefully others can help you know what to expect and how it can help. Look for new videos each Wednesday and Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, where we take a deep dive into what religious trauma is, how it forms, in whom it's most likely to form, and what we can do about it if it does form. If you'd like me to cover a specific topic here, let me know in the comments. And if you're new here and curious about religious trauma, or think you may be suffering from it, first of all, welcome to the channel. Then explore it to see what other topics I've covered and what resources are available to you. And until next time, you guys, let's continue to catalyze a conversation together about religious trauma, to let those who suffer from it know that there's real hope, and to let those who dismiss it know that it's real.